What do you do when your world is ending? Not metaphorically, literally. When a plague is killing thousands every single day, when enemies are invading your borders, when your cities are burning, when trusted generals fail you, when your own children keep dying in your arms. Marcus Aurelius faced all of this at once. He ruled Rome during one of the most brutal periods in its history, not during peace, not during prosperity, during collapse. Millions died under his reign, entire regions emptied, soldiers deserted, the people panicked, the Senate whispered, the gods were blamed, fate was cursed. And yet Marcus did not break. At night, alone in a tent on the frontier, or a quiet room in the palace, he wrote to himself. Not speeches, not philosophy meant for others, private notes, reminders, rules. 7 of them, of which number 5 is my favorite. They weren't designed to make him successful, they were designed to keep him sane. These weren't abstract ideas, they were written while death reports sat on his desk, while invasions were unfolding, while grief was still fresh. This is not a list of Stoic principles. This is a survival manual written by a man living through hell. Let me show you how Marcus Aurelius used each rule, not in theory, but in the moments when everything was falling apart. Marcus Aurelius did not rule during Rome's golden age. He ruled during its slow collapse. A plague arrived in 165 AD. The Antonine Plague, they'd call it later. But Marcus didn't have that distance. For him, it was just death. Everywhere. Every day. Numbers that made no sense. 5,000 dead in Rome, then 10,000, then more. Entire cities emptied. Soldiers died faster than they could be replaced. The economy collapsed. Trade routes closed. The people panicked. And while the plague ravaged the empire from within, barbarians pressed against Rome's borders from without. Germanic tribes, the Marcomanni, the Quadi sensing weakness, launching invasions, burning Roman settlements, pushing deep into imperial territory. For the first time in centuries, Italy itself was threatened. Marcus had no military experience. He was a philosopher, a reader, a thinker. But duty called, and the Stoic answered. He left Rome and traveled north to the frontier. He would spend the next decade of his life there, living in military camps, commanding legions, fighting a brutal war. But the external enemies weren't the worst of it. 8 of his 13 children died during his reign, some from the plague, some from other illnesses, one after another. Small bodies laid to rest while their father tried to hold an empire together. Trusted generals failed him, made stupid mistakes that cost lives. Friends betrayed him. The Senate whispered that he was weak, that someone else should rule. Through all of this, the plague, the invasions, the deaths, the betrayals, Marcus kept writing. Not histories, not laws, just notes to himself. Instructions for surviving when everything is falling apart. Those notes survived. We call them meditations now. And buried in those private journals are 7 rules that kept Marcus sane when the world was ending. Let me show you what they are and how he used them. Rule 1. Separate facts from feelings. The report arrives at dawn. Marcus stands by a narrow table in his tent as his secretary reads aloud. The numbers are worse than yesterday. 5,000 dead in Rome alone. Soldiers collapsing in their barracks. Physicians abandoning patients out of fear. Around him, advisors whisper. Someone mutters that the gods have abandoned Rome. Another warns of panic spreading through the streets like the plague itself. Marcus feels it too. The tightness in his chest. The thought he doesn't want to finish. This is the end. He dismisses the room. Alone, he sits and opens his journal. His hand is steady, but his mind is racing. He forces himself to write. Things themselves do not touch the soul. It is our judgments about them that disturb us. He stops, reads it back, then continues. He lists what is actually happening, stripped of emotion. The fact, a disease is spreading. People are dying at an accelerated rate. Then he lists what his mind is adding to those facts. The feeling, this is divine punishment. Rome is doomed. There's nothing we can do. Then reality, separate from both. The reality, Plagues have happened before, cities have recovered, empires have endured worse. This will pass, even if it takes years. He writes again, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Marcus does not deny the fear, he refuses to let the fear write the story. He starts a new list. What can be done today? Food distribution to affected areas. More burial teams. Maintaining military discipline so soldiers don't desert. Securing medical supplies. Small actions. Controllable actions. Things that won't end the plague but will help Rome survive it. This becomes his ritual. Every morning, every disaster, every report that makes his chest tighten and his mind scream that everything is lost. Facts on one side, feelings on the other, reality somewhere in between. The plague continues for 15 years. It kills millions. It changes Rome forever. But Marcus remains steady through all of it. Not because it hurts less, not because he has some special immunity to fear, but because every single day he practices separating what is happening from what he tells himself about what is happening. Your boss sends you a harsh email. Your mind immediately starts writing a story. You're getting fired. You're incompetent. Your career is over. Everyone will know you failed. But what actually happened? Your boss pointed out a mistake in a report? That's it. That's the fact. Everything else, the catastrophizing, the shame spiral, the imagined future where you're unemployed and ruined, that's the story you're adding. Marcus learned to catch himself doing this, to stop and ask, what actually happened? Not what might happen, not what it means about me, just what actually, factually occurred. The situation doesn't change, but your relationship to it does, and that makes all the difference between panic and clarity. But knowing how to separate facts from feelings wasn't enough, because while Marcus was managing his mind during the plague, real threats were arriving at Rome's borders, and this time, mental discipline alone wouldn't save anyone. Rule 2. Control only your response. The messenger rides through the night. His horse is exhausted. So is he. He reaches Marcus's camp at the northern frontier, just before dawn. The news he carries is worse than anyone feared. Germanic tribes have broken through the defenses. Not a raid, a full invasion. Villages are burning. Civilians slaughtered. Roman legions are in retreat. Marcus is woken. He dresses quickly and meets the messenger in his command tent. Officers gather around, their faces tight with fear and rage. The messenger delivers his report. Every detail makes it worse. The breach was larger than expected. The tribes are moving faster than anticipated. Roman forces are scattered and disorganized. Marcus listens without interruption. His face shows nothing. When the messenger finishes, there's silence. Everyone is waiting for the emperor to react, to rage, to blame someone, to show the anger they all feel. Marcus speaks quietly. This has already happened. Nothing I do can undo it. He walks to the map table, studies the positions, then asks calm, practical questions. Where are the survivors gathering? Which roads remain open for reinforcements? Which generals are still maintaining discipline? What supplies do we have that can be moved quickly? His officers are thrown off balance. They expected fury. They got strategy. One advisor can't help himself. Your Majesty, they've killed hundreds of our people, burned our settlements. This is what has happened, Marcus interrupts. I cannot change what has happened. I can only choose what happens next. Later, alone in his tent, he writes, You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He cannot unburn the villages. He cannot bring back the dead. He cannot make the Germanic tribes disappear or undo their invasion. But he can move his army strategically. He can reinforce supply lines. He can order his remaining forces to act with discipline rather than revenge-driven chaos. He can control his response. That's all. But that's everything. The counterattack Marcus orders is measured, effective, not driven by emotion but by strategy. He doesn't waste lives on vengeance. He doesn't make rash decisions to prove strength. Rome survives the invasion, pushes the tribes back, holds the frontier. Not because Marcus controlled the Germanic warriors, not because he could prevent invasions from happening, but because when chaos arrived, and chaos always arrives, he mastered the only thing he could actually control, his response to it. You send a risky text, the second you hit send, you see it. The typo, the tone that's slightly off, the thing you should have phrased differently. Now you're spiraling, refreshing your phone every 30 seconds, imagining their response, crafting apology messages in your head that you haven't sent yet. You can't unsend the message. You can't control how they interpret it. You can't reach into their brain and make them understand what you meant. What can you control? Whether you send 12 panicked follow-ups or wait calmly. Whether you learn from this for next time. Whether you let this consume your entire evening or accept that it's done. That choice, that tiny space between what happens and how you respond is where all your power lives. Marcus learned to live in that space, during invasions, during plagues, during every crisis that would have broken a lesser man. But his training was about to face its hardest test, because there are some losses that military strategy can't fix, some pain that mental discipline can't prevent, and Marcus was about to face it again. Rule 3. Stay in the present moment. The room is quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that only exists in the presence of death. Marcus stands beside a small bed. His daughter's body lies still. She was 7 years old. Or was it 8? The numbers blur together after you've lost this many children. This is the 4th child he's buried. Or maybe the 5th. He started losing count. A servant stands in the doorway, waiting for instructions, for decisions about burial arrangements, for the emperor to be the emperor even now. Marcus doesn't speak. He just stands there. His mind wants to go to dark places, to imagine the other children dying. There are still several alive. How many will he lose before this is over? The thought comes unbidden, unwanted. He catches himself, stops the spiral before it begins. He cannot think about the other children dying. They're alive now. This moment, this grief, is already enough to carry. His mind tries another path, replaying the last few days. Was there something he missed? Some symptom he should have caught? Could a different physician have helped? He stops that too. The past is gone. It cannot be changed. Torturing himself with what-ifs won't bring her back. He forces himself to breathe, to stay in this moment. Not the imagined future where all his children are dead. Not the unchangeable past where maybe things could have been different. Just this moment. This grief. This body that needs to be prepared for burial. This decision that needs to be made. He does not write that night. He simply sits with the pain. Later, days later, when words return, he writes, "Do not let the future trouble you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. Tomorrow will bring its own pain. Yesterday's pain is already finished. All he has is right now. And right now is hard enough. You get bad news, medical test results that aren't what you hoped, a relationship ending, a job rejection, money problems that just got worse. Immediately, your brain time travels, forward into catastrophe. You see yourself alone, broke, sick, failed. You imagine scenarios stretching out for years, each one worse than the last. Or your brain goes backward, replaying every decision that led here, every warning sign you ignored, every moment you could have chosen differently. And while you're visiting these fictional past and future hells, you miss the only moment where you actually have any power. Right now. Right now, you're breathing. Right now, you're okay. Right now, you can take one small action. Not a solution to everything, just the next step, the next breath, the next decision. Marcus buried 9 children during his life. 9. Each time, his mind tried to drag him into past regret or future terror. Each time, he had to pull himself back to the present, not because the present was easier, but because it was the only place where he could actually function. The present moment is the only place where action is possible. The past is gone. The future doesn't exist yet. But right now you can do something, even if that something is just surviving the next hour. Marcus learned this during his darkest losses. But loss wasn't the only battle he faced. War was always coming, and for that, he developed a different kind of mental preparation. Rule 4. Prepare your mind before battle. The camp is restless. Too many men awake when they should be sleeping. Tomorrow, the battle begins. Marcus's forces will engage the Germanic tribes in open combat. It's the kind of fight where thousands die in a single day, where strategy matters but luck matters more, where good men die for bad reasons. Marcus walks alone through the camp, past tents where veterans try to sleep, knowing this might be their last night, past nervous recruits too young to hide their fear, past officers reviewing plans one more time, as if one more look at the map will make the difference. He reaches the edge of camp and stops, looks out at the darkness where tomorrow's enemies are camped. Somewhere out there, Germanic warriors are having the same sleepless night. He knows fear is coming, has felt it before every battle. The question isn't whether he'll be afraid. The question is whether fear will control him when it arrives. So he meets it early. He returns to his tent, opens his journal, writes, "Begin the morning by saying to yourself, I shall meet with busybody, ingratitude, arrogance, deceit, ill will, and selfishness." But he goes further than the usual formula. He writes specifically about tomorrow. The plan might fail. His strategies might be wrong. Men might die because of his decisions. He imagines defeat, sees the Roman lines breaking, sees the retreat, sees the blame that will come his way, sees his name in the history books attached to this loss. He imagines a messenger riding to Rome with news of disaster, imagines the Senate calling for his removal, imagines his reputation destroyed. He sits with these images, lets himself feel them, the fear, the shame, the weight of responsibility for deaths that haven't happened yet. And something interesting occurs. By deliberately imagining the worst loses its power to surprise him. This is not pessimism. This is inoculation. When you've already faced something in your mind, reality can't shock you the same way. By dawn, he's calm. Not because the danger disappeared, not because he's suddenly confident of victory, but because his mind has already been to the worst places, already survived the worst scenarios. Whatever happens today, he's already been there mentally. And when the real battle comes brutal, chaotic, nothing like the plans Marcus is ready, not unafraid, but unshakable. Because he'd already shaken himself on purpose, already tested his mind under imagined pressure, already survived the fear before the fear arrived. You have a difficult conversation coming tomorrow. Maybe you need to set a boundary with your mother. Maybe you need to have the, "Where is this going?" talk with your partner. Maybe you need to tell your boss you're leaving. Your instinct is to avoid thinking about it, to distract yourself until the last possible moment, to hope it goes smoothly. That's exactly backward. Sit down tonight. Imagine it going badly. See them getting defensive. Hear them saying the most hurtful thing they could say. Watch the conversation end in anger, or tears, or silence. Feel that. Let your body experience the discomfort of that imagined scenario. Now ask yourself, if that happens, how will I respond? What will I say? How will I stay calm? By tomorrow, you've already survived the worst version of that conversation. The real thing, even if it goes badly, won't shock you. You've been there already. This is how you build an iron mind. Not by avoiding scary thoughts, but by deliberately visiting them until they lose their power to break you. Marcus used this before every battle. But battles weren't his only problem. Because while he was fighting enemies at the frontier, critics were whispering in Rome. And some fights can't be won, they can only be endured. If these rules are hitting home, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. We're building something here, a community of people who need ancient wisdom for modern struggles. Now let's see how Marcus handled reputation. Rule 5. Accept that you will be misunderstood. Rumors spread through Rome like fire through dry grass. Marcus is weak, they say, too philosophical. A real emperor would have crushed the barbarians by now. A real emperor wouldn't waste time writing in journals while Rome burns. Some senators whisper that Lucius Verus, his co-emperor, should rule alone. Others suggest Marcus should step down. A few hint at darker solutions. In an empire this large, secrets don't stay secret. Word reaches Marcus at the frontier. Every criticism, every doubt, every suggestion that maybe someone else should wear the purple. His advisors are furious on his behalf. They want him to act. Arrest the loudest critics. Make an example. Show strength through punishment. Marcus refuses. He's sitting in his tent when one of his generals makes the case one more time. Your Majesty, these men are undermining your authority. If you don't silence them, others will join. You need to show Rome you won't tolerate. I need to do my duty, Marcus interrupts. That's all. The general doesn't understand. Your duty includes protecting your position. If the Senate turns against you, then the Senate turns against me. Marcus's voice is calm. I cannot control what men say. I can barely control what they do. All I can control is whether I do what's right. Later, alone, he writes, I do my duty. Other things trouble me not. He knows what they're saying about him, knows that history might record him as weak or indecisive, knows that no matter what he does, someone will call it the wrong move. He could spend his energy defending his reputation, could craft the narrative, could silence every critic, could make sure everyone understands his reasoning. Or he could just do what's right and let others think what they will. He chooses the latter, because he understands something most people never figure out. You will be misunderstood. No matter what you do, no matter how right you are, someone will get it wrong. And if you spend your life trying to control how others perceive you, you'll have no energy left to actually be the person you want to be. The whispers continue. The criticisms don't stop. But Marcus stops caring, not because he's numb to it, but because he's made a choice about where to spend his limited energy. On actions he can control, not on perceptions he can't. History would eventually vindicate him. He'd be remembered as one of Rome's greatest emperors. But he didn't know that. He died with critics still questioning his every move. And he was okay with that. You make a decision that's right for you. Maybe you turn down a promotion because you value time over money. Maybe you end a relationship everyone thought was perfect. Maybe you choose a path that doesn't make sense to outsiders. The judgments come immediately. You're making a mistake. You're being selfish. You're going to regret this. I thought you were smarter than that. And you feel it. That desperate urge to explain yourself, to make them understand, to justify your choice until they approve. Don't. You don't owe anyone a detailed defense of your reasoning. You don't need to convince them you're right. You don't need their permission or their validation. Do what you know is right. Then let go of the outcome. Let go of who understands and who doesn't. Let go of your reputation in their eyes. Some people will never understand. Some people need you to be wrong so they can feel right about their own choices. Some people are just going to judge you no matter what you do. Let them. Your job isn't to be understood. Your job is to act with integrity and accept the consequences, including being misunderstood, criticized, and judged. Marcus made peace with this, but reputation wasn't his only struggle, because while critics whispered, his own people were failing him, and that required a different kind of wisdom. Rule 6. Don't expect competence from others. The report arrives in the evening. Marcus reads it twice, hoping he misunderstood. He didn't. A general disobeyed direct orders. Marcus had been clear. Hold the defensive position. Wait for reinforcements. Do not engage the Germanic forces in open battle. The general attacked anyway. Thought he knew better. Thought glory mattered more than strategy. Thought he could win quick and make a name for himself. He was wrong. Men died. Good soldiers who trusted their commanders, who followed orders even when those orders were stupid. Families destroyed. A tactical position lost that will take weeks to recover. Marcus sets down the report, feels anger rising in his chest, hot, justified, demanding release. He stands, paces, wants to summon the general immediately, wants to ask him what he was thinking, wants to make him understand what his arrogance cost. But he stops himself. He walks to his desk, opens his journal to a page he wrote months ago. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful, jealous, and surly. He reads it again. and something loosens in his chest. He'd known this would happen, not this specific failure, not this particular general, but some failure, some moment when someone he trusted would make a stupid decision. Because humans are flawed. Even trained generals, even experienced commanders, even people who should absolutely know better. The mistake still hurts. But it doesn't shock him. He'd already accepted that this was possible. Expected it, even. And that expectation removes the sting of betrayal, turns rage into disappointment, turns disappointment into simply dealing with reality. He writes a letter to the general, firm but not cruel. The mistake is named, the consequences are listed. The general is reassigned away from command positions. But Marcus doesn't destroy him, doesn't make a spectacle of the punishment, doesn't let his anger turn into vengeance. Because he'd already decided that expecting perfection from other humans was a recipe for constant bitterness. Your coworker drops the ball. Again. They missed the deadline you both agreed on. Now you're doing their work on top of yours, while they offer some weak excuse about being busy. You're furious. Not just about the extra work, about the principle of it. They should know better. This isn't complicated. Basic responsibility shouldn't be this hard. But here's the thing. You set yourself up for this anger. They've shown you who they are. Multiple times. They've proven their level of reliability. And yet you keep expecting them to suddenly transform into someone else. You keep being shocked when they do exactly what they've always done. That's on you. This doesn't mean accepting poor behavior. Doesn't mean you can't address it or set boundaries or protect yourself. It means adjusting your expectations to match reality. It means planning around their weaknesses instead of pretending those weaknesses don't exist. It means protecting yourself from predictable disappointment. Marcus had to do this with people who made mistakes that cost lives. You can do it with people who just cost you time and frustration. Stop being shocked when people are exactly who they've proven themselves to be. When you stop expecting perfection, you stop drowning in resentment when you don't get it. You can hold people accountable without letting them poison your mind. You can address problems without letting bitterness eat you alive. But there was one final rule Marcus relied on more than all the others, the one that made everything else possible. And it's the simplest one, yet the one most people never actually do. Rule 7. Write to remind yourself who you are. At night, Marcus returns to his journal. Always at night. After the decisions have been made, after the reports have been read, after the day's weight has been carried. He doesn't write to impress anyone. These words will never be read by the Senate, never be carved in marble, never be taught to future emperors. He writes to himself. To the Marcus who will forget tomorrow, to the Marcus who will be tested again and need to remember. The day was long, more plague deaths, a general's failure, rumors of conspiracy, the weight of decisions that will save some lives by ending others. He's tired. More than that, he's losing himself. The pressure makes him forget his principles, forget what matters, forget the man he decided to be years ago. So he writes, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. Simple words, obvious, even, the kind of thing that seems too basic to write down. But that's exactly why he writes it. Because obvious truths become invisible under pressure, because stress makes you forget what you know, because fear makes you small. He writes about gratitude, about accepting fate, about treating people with kindness even when they don't earn it. He's not inventing new philosophy. He's reminding himself of what he already knows, but keeps forgetting. Because knowing something once, in a moment of clarity, is not enough. You forget. Everyone forgets. Pressure erases memory. Exhaustion deletes wisdom. You need to write it down. Read it again. Return to it when you forget. This is his final rule, the one that makes all the others work. Write the truth down, because you will forget it. And when you forget it, you need something to remind you. You know what the right thing to do is. You know you should be patient with your kids. You know you should stop scrolling and start creating. You know you should have that hard conversation. You know you should apologize. You know. But knowing once, in a moment of wisdom, is not enough. Because tomorrow you'll wake up tired, or stressed, or distracted, and you'll forget. That's why you need to write it down, not to learn something new, to remember what you already know but keep forgetting. Write down the person you want to be, not in vague terms, in specific behaviors. When I'm angry, I take 3 breaths before responding. When I'm afraid, I ask what the brave version of me would do. When I'm tired, I remember that rest is productive, not lazy. Then read it, every morning, every time you catch yourself slipping. Marcus did this every night for years, not because he was weak, because he was wise enough to know that even strong minds need regular maintenance. That's the difference between people who talk about their values and people who live them. The ones who live them have a system for remembering who they decided to be. Before we close, drop a comment below. Which of these 7 rules hit you hardest? And where in the world are you watching from? Let's see how far Marcus's wisdom has traveled. Why this still matters. Marcus Aurelius died in 180 AD on the northern frontier, still fighting the wars that never seemed to end. Rome eventually fell. The empire he tried to save collapsed within a few centuries. The plague he managed eventually passed, but millions were already dead. The invasions he repelled kept coming after he was gone. His son Commodus, the one child who survived long enough to inherit, became one of Rome's worst emperors. He undid much of his father's work, turned the Principate into a circus, proved that even the best father can't guarantee a good son. From the outside, Marcus lost. The future he fought for didn't arrive. The world he tried to protect fell apart anyway. But these 7 rules survived, written in private journals that were never meant for publication, discovered after his death, copied and recopied through centuries, translated into dozens of languages, read by millions of people Marcus never imagined. Because they were never really about Rome. They were about something more universal. How a human mind survives unbearable pressure without breaking. And they still work. Not because life got easier. Life is still hard. People still die. Plans still fail. Children still break your heart. Colleagues still let you down. Critics still whisper. The world still refuses to cooperate with your preferences. But now you have a manual, written by someone who survived worse than what most of us will ever face. Marcus proved something important. You don't need life to go well, to live well. You don't need control over events to have control over yourself. You don't need the world to be fair to respond with integrity. You just need principles, and the discipline to follow them when everything is falling apart. Here they are one final time. Separate facts from feelings. The situation is rarely as bad as the story you're telling yourself about it. Control only your response. You can't control what happens. You can always control what you do about it. Stay in the present moment. The past is gone. The future doesn't exist. All you have is right now. Prepare your mind before battle. Face your fears deliberately before they ambush you. Accept that you will be misunderstood. Do what's right. Let others think what they will. Don't expect competence from others. Plan for human weakness. It removes bitterness when it arrives. Write to remind yourself who you are. You will forget. You need a system for remembering. These aren't complicated. They're not even original. But they work. They worked when a plague was killing millions. They worked when barbarians were burning villages. They worked when children were dying and generals were failing and the world was ending. They'll work for you too. Because when life gets hard, and it will, you'll need something stronger than hope, stronger than motivation, stronger than positive thinking. You'll need rules that were tested when everything was falling apart. Marcus gave them to you. 2,000 years later, they still work. The question is whether you'll use them. Write them down. Return to them. Let them build in you what they built in him. A mind that bends under pressure, but never breaks. The world is still hard, but you don't have to face it unarmed. Now go use them.